Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we are checking out a cover from Niji Sanji En on Pomu Rainpuff's channel called Otu no Naru Hoe. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Not too long ago, I believe for Pomu's birthday stream. So let's just jump on into things, see how it is. In 3, 2, 1, play. Nice. Nice. Together, it's got this nice choral atmosphere. I really like that. Alright. Nice. It's just an excellent lull from Elira here, because it's very soft atmosphere we're getting. We're not getting even the interjections on the choral side of things. They're not like overly harsh or high velocity. It's a very soft introduction. It's not like high intensity, or the air is very slow and inviting in the song, which I really like how they're singing that. You can hear the demeanor. Nice, that's great. Ooh. Between the soft approach to the vocals, and then we get a more, it's still inviting, it's still fun, soft, but you can hear how the projection of those vocals are from that first Elira segment to the second Shu segment right there. Let's just listen to how they transition from the demeanor in their voice. This is very soft and it's almost breathy, whereas then on... Nice. Nice. Oh, nice. Ooh, I like that mix in here. So now we're getting these like duo main vocals now. I really like how these vocals are mixed, and they're so fluid. The transitions are super nice, and the consistent instrumental kind of helps with that. But getting these very, very fluid transitions between vocals, I mean, that's hard to do. It's hard to get like all these vocalists to sound cohesive in one piece, because not only do you have to match your approach to the song, but also there can be like abrupt cuts or something. You don't want that. You want it to all sound smooth and like it's flowing into each segment, and they're doing that perfectly here. I mean, I love the different, you can still hear the unique timbre to everyone's voice, but the transitions are still so smooth and fluent. Nice. Nice. I like how we... with, I believe that was Uki and Luca, with them really raising the bass tones in the front of the mix, then coming in with that interjection that was very, treble tonality, high pitch. It's these little contrasts, these very subtle contrasts, between each, or I suppose at the front of the mix. Those interjections weren't necessarily the main vocal, but they were still, the front of the mix at that moment. So, getting these little comparisons, these variations in an overall fairly consistent mix, at least, with the instrumentation and everything, and, the atmosphere of the song, it's very satisfying to hear. And that's what people want to hear when they see voice pops out. Nice. Nice. And listen to even how the instrumentation changes across those two parts. And I know I'm kind of pausing a lot, but I mean, this is a perfect song to really change the parts that they're singing. And I mean, this is an excellent song to analyze for me. Listen to as we get the bassier tones from instrumentation to emphasize the impact. So now we had a lift and then we have impact. But it's very subtle, you know? The consistency of the song is still there. The atmosphere is still consistent, you know? A real treble lift. Then we had a bassier segment, in terms of vocals at least. Done with the piano. The piano, it has that impact from the bass tones, but it's got more sustain, it's got more intermission between each impact of the percussive aspect of the piano. Nice. Oh. Nice. Ooh, nice. Big switch up. Yeah, okay. Red's voice, he has got such a pop star voice. I mean, we've reacted to Red before on this channel, but yeah, he's got the pop star voice. I will say, it sounds like they got some pitch correction on his voice there, which I don't think he needed. Yeah, like, that sounds like it has some pitch correction on it. I don't think he needed that. Like, his voice, he can hit those notes, and his voice is more than aesthetic enough, or appealing enough for that segment. You know, it's possible there was some pitch correction here and there, you know, across the tracks that I just didn't notice before. But when you're doing a solo, you know, like a solo focus on a vocal, you don't want the pitch correction to be too obvious, because, you know, especially if there isn't, you know, an obvious aesthetic for that. You know, if it's a very synth heavy song where you're, you know, focusing a lot more on those digital aspects of the mix, then it might be okay to have, you know, an emphasized auto-tune for perhaps even the old one, to avoid getting that pitch correction very obvious. And I really like those backing vocals you get, especially when they're breathier on the bass tonality. You know, that breathy backing vocal is so satisfying, especially when it's down low. When it's up high, it can be, you know, it can attribute itself for just like a mid to high vocal range. Nice. Ooh, that was a nice bass transition. Ooh, nice. Oh, that was interesting. We had a completely fluid transition. There was not so much as an impact for that transition. It was simply the vocal interjection and then right into things. That, to me, that is perhaps one of the most unique composition choices I've seen in a while. Because, I mean, to not have an impact on that transition is a daring choice to me. You know, to some people, impacts and transitions almost go hand in hand. You gotta have something, right? I would expect at least like a piano hit, right? But we got a completely smooth transition there. You know, obviously we had the vocal interjection with the yeah, 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 yeah. And then we had... Yeah, you could argue that is the transition, but there was no, like... I would have expected a piano run and then it hit a chord, and then that would be the transition, right? But there was no impact at the end of that run, which is surprising to me. But I kind of like it. I think it kind of it adds this airiness to the song that fits the import. I think that was a cool transition to have. Nice. I like how the voices mix with this piano. Nice. Nice. You hear how that demeanor, they're pushing out more air on that segment. You can hear how they kind of push a little more air out, but they kind of twist it to make it friendly and fun there. Right there. Nice. And you can hear it even at the end for that ending note on that segment. They went a little, I believe it was just Rosemi, I believe, who went a little bit nasally for that ending to make it more fun and inviting and playful, which was, I think, a good choice to add those little, you know, minute variations in the aesthetic of the segment, of how they're approaching that segment of the song. Ooh. That one had a very unique projection, actually. And then this is nice. Interesting. So for this transition, for this group segment, we got a digital transition now. So we still had a piano run, but we're using a digital transition instead of a a piano-based one. Man, I love how their voices are mixing here, though. That's nice. I like how the piano introduces itself there with a little soft, like these aren't necessarily like their gen groups, but it's just a group of singers, right? And that was that was nice. I like that piano right here. Ooh, nice. Oh, okay. Nice to say there. I like that. I know this is not the ending, but I actually want to go back just to hear that closing again. I know it's kind of a weird place to pause, I know, but I want to go back. All right. Man, I'm gonna listen to this again after the video because there's a lot here. There's a lot to unpack here. I really like that. That was that was really good. I really enjoyed that. I love how their voices mix. I mean, you'll get a lot of group songs, not even in the VTuber community, just in general. There are a lot of like big choral songs where they try to they try to focus on every individual, right? On each individual, right? I feel this was a really having a fun, fluent aesthetic because a lot of times you'll because a lot of times it can be hard to get multiple vocal choices as well because with the sort of friendly aesthetic, a very good song to cover with a large group of people because if it has these rapid switch ups, that would be very difficult to pull together a cohesive vocal, especially when the vocalists are at different places, right? Like if they're not together in the same recording booth. But to showcase each person's vocals, I have to say I really liked times more. It was very, very well mixed but you could still, then there would be 3 people assigned to the following midtone, and then there would be 6 people assigned to 2 different segments, and those would follow the midtone. It's still keeping that midtone in tonality, but changing it up with their natural timbre of their voice. And then we would have a transition, and not a very harsh transition or anything, but just be a smooth transition to the next segment. And that might be like a groups, like a larger group that's all singing together, and then we'd go from larger group to larger group because we have that many people. and I mean, it was just, it was beautifully arranged. I love how the vocals were organized. I mean, that was excellent. That was really, really good. I really enjoyed that. So yeah, I'm definitely going to be listening to this again after this video, because there's a lot to unpack here, that like I can definitely hear more of different people's voices that I may not have been able to, get a massive grasp on. Like for example, Shu. Shu doesn't have a large amount of like covers or originals, but I can hear his voice very clearly here, and I actually really, really love the aesthetic of his voice, especially how it velocity of his air changes. And what I love in this cover is that we followed that velocity of the air with a different choral interjection. Before it was like, yeah, 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 and that was our choral interjection. Then on Shu's part, it was a lot more, it wasn't drastically staccato, but, it was a bit sharper to match that, that aesthetic of Shu's voice. And it's possible that's just, I hope that makes sense. I know I'm kind of going on a rant here, but I really enjoyed this. So thank you very much for recommending it. As always, feel free to recommend more in the comments below. Aside from that, I will see you all next time. Thank you so much.